I was married for 33 years, certain my wife and I would grow old together, until one confession shattered everything. What she revealed changed our family forever and forced me to rebuild a life I never expected to live alone. I've been married to the same woman, Mia, for 33 years. That's more than 3 decades of shared mornings, bills, arguments, inside jokes, and family milestones. We have 2 grown kids and 2 grandkids we adore. For most of my adult life, this was my identity. Husband, father, grandfather. A man who truly believed he'd die holding the same woman's hand he'd been holding since the 80s. We met in a loud, smoky nightclub back in that era when people still danced like their lives depended on it. I was working security on the door, big and strong back then, keeping drunks from starting fights. She walked in with her friends, laughing, hair bouncing on her shoulders, and I remember thinking she was the prettiest woman in the room. She kept catching my eye, and eventually we talked, then laughed, then swapped numbers. One date turned into several, and within a couple of months we moved in together. 2 years later, we were standing in front of friends and family, promising to be faithful and stand by each other until the end. For a long time, life was good in that comfortable, ordinary way. We worked, we saved, we went out occasionally, we raised our kids, we navigated the chaos of school plays, illnesses, bills, and holidays. Somewhere along the way, my job changed from physically demanding to mostly sitting at a desk, and over the years, the weight crept on. Then it didn't just creep, it piled on. I went from being a big, strong guy to simply being big, and then obese. It affected everything. The simple act of walking up a flight of stairs left me puffing. I started snoring at night, and slowly, almost quietly, it killed our intimacy. There were times during sex where I'd have to stop, chest tight, wheezing, feeling like my lungs were on fire. More than once I'd laugh it off and pretend I was just tired, and she would pretend right along with me. Our bedroom didn't become completely dead, but compared to a normal, healthy relationship, it might as well have been. It was like the lights were on, but no one was really home. Through all of that, though, we stayed loyal. I had been on the wrong end of infidelity before I ever met Mia, and when we got serious, we made a very clear agreement. Cheating was a hard line. No flirting, accidents, no secret messages. No, it just happened. We would either work on things together or walk away, but we would never betray each other. It was our red line. I believed it. She said she believed it too. I honestly thought we'd kept that promise for 33 years. After about 20 years of that half-alive bedroom, I hit a breaking point. I remember looking at myself in the mirror one day, really looking. My face barely recognizable under all the weight, my clothes stretched tight, my body wheezing even when I was just standing still. I thought of my grandkids and realized I might not live long enough to see them grow up if I kept going the way I was. That thought cut deeper than any insult ever could. So I decided to change. It took 2 years of hard work. Diet, exercise, medical help, the whole lot. I ended up losing 80 kilograms, around 176 pounds. Eventually, I had a tummy tuck to get rid of the excess skin. Some people might call that vain, but I had 3 very clear reasons. I wanted to be around long enough to watch my grandkids become adults, I needed to fix my health before it killed me, and I wanted to reignite a part of our marriage that had been dying for 2 decades. I wanted to desire my wife and feel desired by her again. And it worked. Our sex life came back from the grave. Over the last couple of years before everything blew up, we were intimate 3 or 4 times a week. She was enthusiastic, responsive, and there was no mistaking how much she enjoyed it. Bodies don't lie. She'd still tell me she loved me. I'd look at her and think we made it through the worst. After 30 plus years, we were still here, still together, still choosing each other. I never once stepped outside our marriage, and I was absolutely sure she hadn't either. That thought wasn't even on the table in my mind. We shared passwords, could see each other's locations on our phones, not as some controlling measure, but for safety and transparency. If she was running late or I was driving somewhere remote, we knew where the other one was. was. No hidden phones, no secret accounts, no deleted message trails. Trust wasn't an issue. It was simply how we lived. When I lost the weight, something unexpected happened. I started getting attention from other women again. Small things at first. Longer glances, smiles, overly friendly chit-chat. I noticed, but I always shrugged it off. I was a married man, and I was happy to be one. My ego didn't need external validation. I had a wife at home I loved. Mia did admit that it made her a little insecure. She'd gained some weight over the years, and now suddenly the roles felt flipped. I kept telling her it didn't matter to me. I loved her for who she was and how we'd built a life together, not for the number on a scale. Then 3 days ago, everything shattered. I was on my way home from work, driving along a familiar route, already thinking about what I might cook for dinner, when my phone rang through the car's Bluetooth. It was Mia. I answered, expecting a casual chat. But the moment she spoke, I knew something was wrong. Her voice was shaky, panicked, like someone trying not to drown. She asked me if her sister had spoken to me. That threw me. I said no. Why? What was going on? In my head, I'm thinking maybe one of them got hurt, or there was some family emergency on their little trip. She was away interstate with her 2 sisters on a short holiday, and I hadn't worried at all. I trusted her implicitly. I'd even told her to enjoy herself, to relax, to make the most of it. Instead, she took a breath and told me she'd cheated, that she'd had sex with another man. There are moments where time seems to slow down and speed up all at once. That was one of them. I just sat there in the driver's seat staring at the road like it belonged to someone else. My chest felt hollow, like someone had scooped everything out with a shovel. She kept talking, sobbing, words tumbling over each other. She explained that she and her sisters had been drinking at the hotel bar. At some point, a married couple joined their table, chatting, laughing, buying rounds. They drank until 2 in the morning. Her sisters went back to their room earlier, and she stayed behind with the couple. When the bar closed, she went up to their room with them to keep drinking and talking. They complimented her over and over, told her how sexy she looked, said I was a lucky husband. She said she felt flattered, drunk, carried along by the attention. Then, according to her, things escalated. The husband started touching her. The wife encouraged it, told them both to enjoy themselves, told Mia that no one would ever know, that it would be a fun little secret. Mia said she didn't feel like herself, like she was watching someone else, and then she had sex with the husband while the wife watched. She said when she woke up in the morning, she was in bed with both of them. She panicked, grabbed her clothes, and ran back to her room. One of her sisters saw her coming back and demanded to know where she'd been. Mia broke down and confessed, and her sister told her she either had to tell me or she would. All of that poured out of her over the phone. Sobs, apologies, the whole "I don't know what came over me" speech. She kept saying she hated herself, that she loved me, that she'd made a terrible mistake. She begged me to forgive her, to somehow look past it, to believe it was a one-time thing, a drunken lapse. But here's the thing that hit me like a hammer in that moment. A mistake is tripping over a step, misplacing your keys, burning dinner. You don't accidentally go to a stranger's room, let a man touch you, and then have sex with him while his wife cheers you on. That's not a mistake. That's a series of decisions. I told her exactly that. I said, "You didn't make a mistake, you made a decision." Then I ended the call and turned my phone off. I drove home in a fog. I don't remember half the drive. When I walked through the door, everything felt wrong. The house looked the same, smelled the same, but the sense of safety it used to hold for me was gone. I sat in a chair and just stared. Thought about 33 years of marriage. About the girl who'd walked into that bar in the 80s. About the children we'd raised and the grandkids who called us grandma and grandpa. I thought about all the nights I had told her I loved her and meant it completely. And I cried. I cried for the version of my wife I thought existed. I cried for the future we'd imagined. Old age together, slow mornings, sharing stories with the grandkids, complaining about our joints, holding hands on the couch. I cried for the fact that one night could do so much damage, that a single decision could burn down a lifetime of trust. For 2 days, I shut the world out. Phone off, No messages, I barely slept. Food tasted like cardboard. I felt like my life had cracked in half and I was sitting in the rubble, not sure which part to stand in anymore. Eventually, I turned the phone back on. It lit up like a Christmas tree, dozens of missed calls from her and her sisters, hundreds of messages, apologies, explanations, pleas, desperate walls of text. The last message from her said she was on her way home. She'd cut the holiday short. My kids had called too, multiple times. She'd been contacting them, frantic because I'd gone silent, asking if they'd heard from me, if I was okay. I called my son and daughter and told them as calmly as I could what had happened. I told them I was as okay as someone in my position could be. I also told them I couldn't be there when their mother came home, that I needed to get away, clear my head, and face the reality that my marriage was probably over. I asked them not to tell her where I was going. Then I sent Mia a message. Short, blunt, I told her we were done, that we would be getting a divorce, that I didn't want to hear any more excuses or details, that whatever we had was finished. I didn't care how drunk she claimed to be, how much she insisted she hated herself. The pain inside me felt like someone had taken a knife to my chest, and yet beneath it was a cold sort of clarity. The line we'd always said we'd never cross had been crossed. There was no going back. The days that followed were a blur. I learned more through my sister-in-law, who called me and filled in pieces Mia had left out. Things weren't adding up between the story Mia told me and the one she confessed to her sister when she broke down. My kids were horrified and hurt too, not just for me, but because the image of their mother had cracked. I told them they had every right to be angry, but she was still their mom and still their kids' grandmother. What she did to me didn't erase the years she spent raising them and loving them. I didn't want them to cut her out and then regret it decades from now. Mia and her sisters had come home early from their trip, and before she arrived, I left a note on the kitchen table. It said she needed to pack a bag and go stay at her mother's place. When she came back and saw it, she went. She didn't argue. Maybe she knew there was no fight she could win in that moment. Then more truth came out. According to her sister, Mia had eventually spilled everything. Not just the "we were drunk and things got out of hand" version she gave me on the phone, but the deeper truth hiding underneath. She told her sister she still loved me and loved our marriage, but that our recently revived sex life had stirred something in her. That she'd spent all those dry years wondering what she'd missed, and now that she was getting regular intimacy again, she wanted to explore. She'd always been the one men found attractive, she said, and when I lost weight and started getting more attention, she felt like the roles had flipped and she went into a tailspin of insecurity. She wanted to feel wanted by someone else, to scratch an itch she'd been secretly nursing. She swore it was the first time, but she also admitted she'd planned it. She wasn't just some random woman stumbling into a stranger's room because she was too drunk to think. She had been speaking to that couple for months. They weren't strangers at all. They were clients of our business who lived in another state. I had never met them, but she talked to them on the phone regularly. When this trip was coming up, they arranged to meet for drinks. Her sisters tagging along had apparently been an inconvenience, so they all pretended to be strangers at the bar until the sisters left. Mia knew what was going to happen. She drank, sure, but she wasn't falling down drunk. The three of them had coordinated this before she ever packed her bags. When I heard that, something in me that might have still been clinging to hope just shut off. The drunken accident version was already bad enough. The planned fantasy version was so much worse. And yet I knew I had to talk to her face to face. She was coming over that afternoon to explain everything, according to my daughter. Apparently, she was beside herself, terrified about what I would decide, desperate to fix something that couldn't be fixed. But while she spiraled, my own resolve only solidified. She had chosen to cheat, she had chosen to lie, and every consequence that followed was hers to own, even if everyone around us would feel the shockwaves. I knew even before she walked through that door what my decision would be. When she finally arrived, I was sitting at the dining table. I heard the door open and close softly, and then she stepped inside. Normally, after all these years together, seeing her upset would hit me straight in the chest. I used to be the one to comfort her, to pull her close, to tell her everything would be alright. But this time, nothing. No urge to hug her, no instinct to soothe her, just a strange, quiet numbness that felt like standing in the middle of a frozen lake, hearing the echo of your own breath. She looked awful. Eyes red and swollen, face pale, hair a mess like she'd been tugging at it for hours. Her posture was small, almost folded in on itself. The moment she saw me, she burst into tears and rushed toward me for a hug, mumbling apologies, frantic words spilling out as fast as her tears. But I lifted my hand and said sharply, "Don't touch me. Sit down." She froze, startled, then sank into the chair across from me with trembling hands. I stood up, walked to the kitchen, and offered her coffee because I wanted her alert and honest. She whispered yes, so I made 2 cups and brought them back, placing one in front of her. She stared at me like she was afraid to blink. And maybe she should have been. I felt nothing but that cold, hollow clarity inside me. Before she could launch into excuses, I told her very firmly to stay quiet unless she was answering my questions. I made it clear this conversation wasn't about her feelings. It was about my marriage, my future, my right to hear the truth. I wasn't giving her a chance to spin a story or soften anything. I wanted facts, not theatrics. I told her plainly that we were already done, that her choice had destroyed what we had. But I also told her that people sometimes lie when they think they still have hope. So I wanted whatever shreds of truth she was willing to give me before I closed the door for good. She nodded, shaking violently like she could barely breathe. For a moment, I watched her and felt a strange sensation. Half satisfaction that she finally understood the magnitude of what she'd done, half sorrow for the life we were about to dismantle. Then I told her I'd spoken to her sister, which was true, and to the couple, which was a lie. But she didn't know that. The moment those words left my mouth, her face drained of all color. She looked like someone pulled the plug and let her soul spill out onto the floor. I asked her how many times they'd been involved. She swallowed, eyes darting away, then finally whispered, physically, once, twice, over video. I didn't react, I just asked her to explain. And she did. Piece by piece, she laid out a story far worse than the version she tried selling me over the phone. She said it started months earlier when she and the husband began flirting during business calls. At first, it was small things, compliments, inappropriate jokes, but then the wife got involved and they turned it into some kind of 3-way dynamic. Over time, it escalated to sexual video chats, with the couple encouraging it. Eventually, the wife suggested they meet in person. Mia admitted she'd always fantasized about being watched while having sex with someone else. And this couple offered her that fantasy on a silver platter. She told them it made her feel wanted, young, attractive again. She cried harder as she described how the thrill of danger made it more exciting. She said she knew it was wrong, but she kept feeding the fantasy anyway. When I asked if she intended to tell me afterward, she shook her head so hard it looked painful. "No," she said, "never. It was supposed to stay between us. I thought if I did it once, I could bury it." I stared at her and said nothing, just waited. She babbled on about insecurity, losing herself, doubting her desirability now that my body had changed. I let her talk until she started blaming emotions and circumstances, then cut her off sharply. I didn't want to hear her justifications. I didn't want the "I wasn't myself" cliches people cling to in desperation. I wanted honesty, not excuses wrapped in tears. I asked her straight out if she'd ever cheated before in our 33 years together. She said no, never. And maybe she was telling the truth, or maybe she was lying. I realized it didn't matter anymore. The damage was done beyond repair. Whether she cheated once or 1,000 times, she had already burned the bridge behind us. When she realized I had no interest in reconciliation, she panicked. She reached across the table toward me, begging, promising anything, literally anything. She said we could fix it. She said she would live however I wanted. She even said I could sleep with other women if it would help me balance things out, as if turning our marriage into some transactional mess would undo what she did. I recoiled immediately and told her not to touch me. I said I would never cheat, not now, not ever, and if I ever slept with someone else, it would only be after our divorce, when we were officially done. I told her she had degraded herself enough without dragging me into that pit with her. Then I said something I had never imagined saying to the woman I once considered my greatest love: I will never touch you again. She let out a sound I can't even describe, somewhere between a sob and a gasp, like her lungs were collapsing, and maybe they were, but inside I felt nothing. Just the quiet, firm realization that I had crossed a threshold and there was no going back. I wasn't judging the lifestyle of the couple. People have open marriages, fantasies, all sorts of arrangements. What others do behind their doors is their business. But we didn't have that relationship. We built 33 years on trust, loyalty, and monogamy. She was the one who set fire to that foundation. After that, things shifted into a practical, almost business-like mode. I told her clearly that we'd sell the house and the business and split everything evenly. 50-50, no drama, no battles. I said she could take the car, I would keep my truck and my motorcycle. She could have the cats because they adored her, and she was not to contact me unless it was about our kids or grandkids. She stared at me, stunned, and then accused me of being emotionless, even cruel. I told her that the void inside me, the emotional dead zone she was staring at, was something she had created by her actions. She destroyed the trust. She destroyed the respect. She destroyed the marriage. I was simply responding to a reality she had chosen. After a few minutes, I stood, walked out, and told her I was leaving so she could gather more of her things. I went to my daughter's place. When I returned hours later, Mia was gone, and for the first time in decades, I slept like a rock. No tossing and turning, no waking up reaching for the other side of the bed. Just quiet, dreamless rest. The next weeks were surreal. I talked to my kids often. They were supportive, hurt, angry, confused, but supportive. I told them repeatedly not to let their mother's choices ruin their relationship with her. She had been a good mom. Her failures as a wife did not erase that, and I didn't want them carrying bitterness for the next 20 years. The business was sold almost immediately. One of our clients wanted to expand, and the timing couldn't have been more convenient. The house needed work after 20 years of living in it, and sorting through the memories was brutal at times, but I got through it. I was focused, determined. There's a strange clarity that comes after you've cried every tear you can cry. But Mia fell apart in her own way. My son had one conversation with her early on, and apparently it didn't go well. He was furious and didn't sugarcoat anything. My daughter, on the other hand, has been talking to her more often. She's honest, sometimes brutally so. She told her mother the truth about what she did and reminded her of every painful repercussion. But she also supported her, helped her navigate the fallout, and tried to make sure she didn't sink too deep into guilt or denial. And speaking of denial, Mia was still deep in it. Whenever she signed papers or showed up for logistics, she'd say things like, "Once you've calmed down, I know we can fix this." Or, "We're meant to grow old together. We'll get past this." She said the decades we spent together would be enough to make me forgive her eventually, that this was just a bump in the road, a detour. One afternoon, when she came to sign the real estate paperwork, she told me confidently, almost cheerfully, that in a few months I'd realize how much I loved her and come back. I looked at her for a long moment and finally said, "You're delusional." She blinked, shocked. I continued, "You had another man inside you. You sucked another man off while his wife watched. Do you honestly think I'd ever touch you after that? Do you think I could unsee that in my mind? We're done." She broke down, mumbling that she didn't know what she was thinking, that the sex wasn't even good, that she regretted everything. I cut her off and told her I didn't want details. Whether it was good or bad wasn't the point. The point was that she did it, she planned it, she followed through. I told her flatly that reconciliation was impossible. Not improbable, impossible. There was no timeline where we rebuilt what she destroyed, and as far as I was concerned, the only thing tying us together now were legalities. After that, something strange happened. Women started noticing me again. Friends, acquaintances, strangers. I wasn't looking for anything. My heart was still bruised and raw, but it was flattering in a way, reassuring, a reminder that the world hadn't ended, even if one chapter had. Mia, however, hated it. She got angry hearing about women dropping off meals for me, or friends checking in, or neighbors visiting. At one point, she even said she wanted me to get it out of my system, and she'd wait for me, as if a fling or two would magically reset our marriage. It was absurd. The only thing I wanted out of my system was her. Even now, months later, the emotions come in waves: anger, disgust, sorrow, loss. But beneath all of that is a steady resolve. She made her choices. I'm making mine. And I am choosing to move forward. 3 months after everything collapsed, life looked completely different. Strange, unfamiliar, but surprisingly clear. The business was sold. The house was sold. The separation was official, even though the law said we had to wait 12 months and 1 day before filing the actual divorce paperwork. But for all practical purposes, the marriage was already dead and buried. I made sure every shared asset was divided fairly. I didn't want revenge. I didn't want drama. I just wanted distance, freedom, a clean slate. I never imagined, not in a million years, that I'd be here. 3 months earlier, I'd thought I'd die married to Mia. I had imagined us growing old together, laughing at our own jokes, spoiling grandkids, complaining about our backs, falling asleep in front of the TV, still touching toes under the blanket. Instead, the woman I had trusted for 3 decades had burned it all down with one reckless decision. A decision she planned, nurtured, and stepped into willingly. Her betrayal didn't just punch a hole through my chest, it ripped apart the foundation of who I thought we were. But as the days passed and the shock faded, something unexpected bloomed in its place: clarity. A kind of inner strength that surprised even me. I realized I had 2 choices. Either let this destroy me, drown me in bitterness, or choose myself for the first time in decades. I'm a practical man by nature. I have always believed in responsibility, in honesty, in doing what needs to be done even when it hurts like hell. And I refuse to spend the rest of my life acting like a victim. I refuse to curl up and let her actions define me. So I didn't. With my share from selling the home and business, I bought 2 small units near my grandkids. My son and daughter live in different states, and I wanted to be close enough to visit easily but still have a place that was entirely mine. Quiet, simple, no memories attached to it. A blank canvas where I could breathe without seeing the ghost of my old life in every corner. I kept working too. A former business competitor reached out and offered me a part-time position. It wasn't anything glamorous, but it was steady, familiar work, and it gave me a sense of routine, a reason to get out of bed. Enough structure to keep me grounded, but enough free time that I could actually live again. For the first time in decades, my life wasn't dictated by someone else's needs or moods or schedules. I had hours, whole afternoons of nothing but open road. During a couple of quieter weeks, before the part-time job officially began, I decided to take the motorcycle out. Just me, the bike, and the wind. No destination, no time frame, no responsibilities. I rode across stretches of countryside, stopped when I felt like it, grabbed coffee at roadside diners, spent evenings in quiet pubs. At night, I slept in cheap motels or just lay on the bike seat, staring at the stars. And somewhere along those miles of winding roads, my heart began to feel lighter, not healed, not yet, but unburdened. I even met a few women during those weeks, purely by chance. Nothing serious, no expectations, just connection, conversation, a shared drink, sometimes more. Casual, uncomplicated, and for the first time since the night Mia confessed, I felt something warm that wasn't pain. A reminder that I was still desirable, still alive, still capable of being wanted without sacrificing my self-respect. People online asked me more than once whether I contacted the couple my ex had cheated with. The answer is no. I never did. I don't care about them. They mean nothing to me. It wasn't their responsibility to protect my marriage. It was hers. They were strangers playing games they'd played before. She was the one who broke vows. She was the one who lied. She was the one who shattered our family for the sake of a fantasy she didn't even think was worth telling me about. I didn't need revenge. I didn't need a confrontation. The best revenge was indifference. The best closure was apathy. And I embraced both fully. My soon-to-be ex-wife, though, she still lives in some alternate reality where she thinks I'll eventually take her back. My daughter told me Mia keeps insisting that once I calm down, once I miss her enough, once I realize what we built together, I'll return. She tells people she's just waiting for me to finally break down and admit I still love her, that this separation is temporary, that decades of marriage will automatically override one night of betrayal. But I told her clearly, again and again, that we are done, permanently, irreversibly. There is no timeline, no universe, no parallel dimension where I take her back. And I mean every word of it. I don't care if she cries. I don't care if she regrets it. I don't care who she sleeps with or whether she stays single forever. None of that concerns me anymore. She lost the right to be part of my life the moment she chose to involve another man. My daughter says Mia is ashamed, embarrassed, lonely, depressed. But I told my daughter the truth. She's not grieving because she lost me. She's grieving because she got caught. If she hadn't been caught sneaking back into the room that morning, she would have buried her secret. She would have kissed me, smiled at me, told me she loved me, and pretended nothing happened. She mourns the consequences, not the betrayal, and that difference matters. Life now is different, quieter, simpler, in some ways lonelier, but also freer. I'm rediscovering who I am without being tethered to her moods, her fears, her insecurities, her expectations. I'm learning to enjoy my routine, my rides, my hobbies. I'm reconnecting with friends I hadn't seen in ages. I'm looking forward, not backward, and I'm done blaming myself. The truth is, she ruined what we had because she wanted to. Not because of my weight, not because of our dry years, not because of insecurity. Plenty of couples struggle with those things without deciding to cheat. She blew up our life because she thought she could get away with it, and because the thrill was worth more to her than 33 years of loyalty. I won't let her rewrite that. These days, I get up early, drink my coffee on the balcony, watch the sunrise, and actually feel grateful for the quiet. I drive to work without dread. I spend afternoons with my grandkids. I cook for myself. I sleep deeply. I breathe easily. And sometimes when I'm on the motorcycle with the wind in my face, I realize something unexpected. I feel hopeful, not because I want another marriage or because I'm rushing toward a new relationship, but because I'm free from the weight of betrayal, free from lies, free to build a future without trying to salvage someone else's mistakes. My marriage is over, but my life isn't. In fact, for the first time in decades, it feels like it's finally beginning.